I want you to picture something. Picture yourself spending 3 weeks finding the perfect outfit for a family wedding. Picture standing in the store, holding up a gold salwar kameez, turning it in the light, thinking, this is the one. Picture ironing it the night before, doing your hair, doing your makeup carefully, telling yourself that this time it will be different. This time you will walk in and feel like you belong. Now, picture arriving at that wedding, being handed a seating card with your name on it, and following it to a folding chair wedged next to a catering table inside the kitchen. That is where my family seated me at my cousin Priya's wedding, in the kitchen, next to a cart of dirty dishes and a woman scraping leftover paneer into a bin bag, while the sound of the dole and 200 guests laughing and clinking glasses floated through the small glass panel on the door like a world I was not allowed to enter. I sat in that chair for 40 minutes. And then I took out my phone and made the call that stopped the entire ceremony. But before I tell you about the call, I need to tell you about the years that made it necessary. My mother, Anita, is the youngest of 4 sisters. In our family, that meant she was also the least important one, a fact that was never stated directly but was communicated in 100 small ways across every year of my childhood. She had married my father, a mechanic named Suresh, and in the unspoken ledger my grandmother kept in her head, this had placed my mother in a category from which she never fully recovered. My father was a good man. He was kind and consistent, and he never once raised his voice at anyone. But he fixed cars for a living, and apparently that was an injury that could not be forgiven. My Aunt Sunita, Priya's mother, had married a man named Vikram, who owned 3 pharmacies and had the handshake of someone who wanted you to know it. She was not openly cruel. She was the more sophisticated kind of unkind, the fake warm comment delivered with a smile that did not reach her eyes. The compliment that was actually a comparison you were always going to lose. When I got into my master's program in urban planning, Aunt Sunita said, "Oh, how wonderful, Maya. Priya got into her MBA, you know, but good for you. Every path is valid." She said it to a table of 12 people. She said it like she was being generous. Priya and I had grown up in the same city, attended the extended family events, eaten at the same tables. We were not enemies, but she existed in a world where her comfort was everyone's first priority, and I existed in the peripheral vision of that world, present enough to invite, distant enough to dismiss. When she announced her engagement, the family entered a collective euphoria. There were engagement dinners, jewelry shopping trips, Mendy planning afternoons. My mother and I were not included in any of them. We found out about the Mendy through a WhatsApp group we had not been added to from a photo Priya posted tagging 8 cousins. I was not one of them. I told myself it was fine. I said that word so many times it had lost all meaning. When the invitation arrived, 3 weeks after everyone else's, as if we were an afterthought someone had nearly forgotten, I noticed my father's name was not on it. Not on the envelope, not inside. Just Anita and family in the loose handwriting of someone who was filling in a form. My father looked at it for a moment, set it on the kitchen counter, and went back to his tea without a word. That silence was somehow harder to watch than anything else. The wedding was on a Saturday in October. The venue was a banquet hall in Southall, gold everywhere, marigold garlands hanging from every arch, the smell of flowers and perfume and something warm and spiced from the kitchens that should have been lovely. And it was lovely. From the outside looking in, it was beautiful. I arrived on time in my gold salwar kameez, with my hair done and my heels on, and the specific kind of smile I had perfected over years of family events, the one that said, "I am fine, I belong here," Please do not see how much this costs me." At the entrance, a young woman with a clipboard found my name and handed me a seating card without making eye contact. I followed the number on the card through the main hall, past the family tables, past the friends tables, past the general guest tables, through a door marked staff only, into the kitchen. I genuinely thought I had followed the wrong door. I checked the card again. My name, my number, this room. A server looked up at me from a counter where he was stacking plates. He said, "You need something?" I I think this is my seat," I said, and as I said it, I understood how insane that sounded. He pointed at the folding chair near the catering table, where two other cards sat, an elderly great-uncle nobody had quite known what to do with, and a distant relative who showed up without RSVPing. We were apparently the unwanted items, the overflow, the people who got the kitchen. I sat down. The kitchen was hot and bright and noisy in a completely different way than the hall. Not joyful noise, but functional noise, clattering and hissing and the whirring of industrial fans. The smell of onion and hot ghee settled into my hair within minutes. I could feel the steam from the doll pots softening my carefully set curls. A server, young, probably a student doing weekend work, came through the swinging door carrying a tray and stopped when he saw me sitting there in my gold outfit and jewelry. He hesitated, then asked with genuine uncertainty, Are you one of the caterers? Do you need a staff apron?" I shook my head. I didn't trust my voice. About 20 minutes in, the door swung open and a cousin walked through. Neha, Aunt Sunita's niece from the other side, a girl I had grown up alongside at every Diwali and every Eid. She saw me. Our eyes met. Her face went through something complicated. Recognition, a flicker of pity, something uglier underneath. And then she looked away, turned around, and went back the way she came. She did not say anything. She did not ask if I was okay. She went back to the party, and I sat in the kitchen, and I heard 3 seconds later the muffled sound of laughter from somewhere I could not see. That was the moment. That was the moment the patience I had been building and maintaining for 29 years finally, quietly, ran out. My hands were shaking when I took out my phone. My throat was tight and my eyes were stinging, and there was a small, familiar voice in my head, the one I had listened to my whole life, saying, "Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass everyone. It's not worth it. Just sit here. Just wait. Just be fine." I looked at my gold salwar kameez, now slightly damp at the shoulders from the kitchen steam. I thought about my mother somewhere in that hall, smiling her tired smile. I thought about my father at home, whose name hadn't even made it onto the invitation. I thought about the Mendy photos, the late invitation, the server asking if I needed a staff apron, the look on Neha's face before she turned around. I opened my contacts and I called Uncle Raj. Uncle Raj was my grandmother's older brother, a retired high court judge who was now 78 years old and had the particular authority of a man who had spent 40 years deciding things that mattered. He had always been kind to me in a way that felt different from the rest of the family's version of kindness, like he actually saw me. He had called me Bright Girl at my 16th birthday and danced one song with me when no one else had bothered, and I had carried that small kindness like something precious for 13 years. He answered on the second ring. I could hear road noise. He was in a car. "Maya," he said, warm and unhurried. I spoke quietly and clearly because I was past the point of hysteria. I told him where I had been seated. I described the kitchen, the chair, the catering table, the server who asked if I needed an apron. I told him about my father's name missing from the invitation. I told him about the Mendy I had found out about through a photo. I told him that my mother was in that hall right now and that I was in the kitchen and that the Farahs were due to start in under an hour. Then I said something I had not planned to say, but which came out in a voice so steady it surprised me. "Uncle, If this isn't corrected before the ceremony begins, I'm going to walk out, and I'm going to tell every single guest exactly why on my way to the door. I won't cause a scene inside. I'll simply leave and explain myself honestly to anyone who asks, and I'll be honest online afterward." There was a pause. Then Uncle Raj said, in a voice so quiet it was almost gentle, "How far is your grandmother from where you're sitting?" "Across a hall and a door," I said. "Good," he said. "Don't move. Don't leave. I will handle this." He was already on his way to the venue for the reception. He called my grandmother from his car. I do not know exactly what he said, but I know what he told me later, that he informed her if she did not personally rectify the situation before the Ferris began, he would stand up during the ceremony and deliver a speech about the kind of family they had allowed themselves to become. He said it without raising his voice. He said it the way a judge says things, not as a threat, but as a fact. I was still sitting in the kitchen, 29 years old and wearing a gold salwar kameez next to a stack of dirty dishes, when the door opened. Not a server, my grandmother, 81 years old, 4'11", in a heavy silk sari the color of a marigold, her white hair pinned under her dupatta. She stood in the doorway and looked at me. And then she looked at the folding chair, and then she looked at the seating card with my name on it lying on the catering table. The look on her face was something I will carry in my memory for the rest of my life. It was not surprise, exactly. It was the look of someone who has known something was wrong for a very long time and has finally been made to look at it directly. It was shame, not performed, not managed, real. She crossed the kitchen and took my hand. Her fingers were small and warm and dry. She said, quietly, "Come with me, beta." She walked me through the service corridor and into the main hall, and you could feel the shift the moment we appeared. Heads turning, a ripple of whispers, Aunt Sunita across the room going visibly pale. My grandmother walked me to the third row, family seating. She stood there until space was made, and then she sat me there, and she sat beside me and held my hand in her lap. And the ceremony started 10 minutes later. Aunt Sunita came to find me before the Ferris began. She sat in the seat on my other side, and she leaned close, and she said, "I'm sorry, Maya. What I did was wrong." Her voice was stiff, like someone reading from a script she had written 5 minutes ago, like someone who was also genuinely ashamed beneath the stiffness. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't comfortable, but it was real enough. I did not say it was fine. I retired that phrase. I said, "Thank you." Priya called me on her honeymoon from a beach somewhere, the wind cutting across the line. She said Arjun had told her during the first dance. He had noticed the kitchen seating her across the room and had been silently furious all evening. She said she hadn't known. Then she paused and said, softer, "I think I didn't ask enough questions. I think I let things be how they were because it was easier." That honesty meant more to me than the apology. We talked for 40 minutes. We made plans for dinner. We kept them. My grandmother began calling me just to talk. She asked about my degree, about my work, about my life. Questions nobody in that family had thought to ask in years. She said once, carefully, "We did not do right by your mother. I did not do right." I told her I loved her. I told her I understood. Both things were true at the same time. My parents were added to the family WhatsApp groups. It was a small thing. It was not a small thing. But I want to be honest with you because this story deserves honesty more than it deserves a tidy ending. The family did not transform. Aunt Sunita sends my mother birthday messages now that are warm in a slightly performed way, and that is still better than silence. Old hierarchies move slowly. I skip certain events now, the ones where I can feel before I even arrive that I will be managed rather than loved. I have stopped trying to earn a seat at tables where my presence is treated as optional. That is not bitterness. That is just new math. What changed most is this. I stopped lying to myself. I stopped sitting in figurative kitchens and calling it gratitude for being included. And I found out, in the most unexpected way, that some of the people I had written off were capable of more than I had given them credit for. Not because I waited patiently for them to change, but because I stopped letting them off the hook. The call I made that day was not revenge. It was not a performance. It was just a 29-year-old woman in a steamed gold salwar kameez deciding that she was worth the honesty, that her pain had a name, that love, real love, the kind worth keeping, is not protected by silence. It is protected by truth. So I want to ask you, if you're reading this and you've ever sat in a kitchen, literal or otherwise, while the party happened on the other side of the glass, would you have made the call? Or would you have stayed in the chair and told yourself it was fine? I almost stayed. I'm glad I didn't.